like to call this meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of Baraboo to order for Monday, March the 25th, 2013, with roll call. Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Mr. McNevin? Not here. Mr. Meering?
Here.
Mr. Mortimer?
Here.
Ms. Riley?
Here.
Mr. Vidro? Is not here. And Bodak? Here. Continue with the pledge. The flag is behind the counter. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the March the 11th, 2013 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion and minutes carried. That brings us to the same for the March the 18th, 2013 special meeting as printed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to correspondence. I have none. Any other board members with correspondence?
No.
Any administrative correspondence?
No.
Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled Public Viewpoints. Do we have anybody here for public viewpoints tonight? Any public viewpoints? Any public viewpoints? Hearing none, I'd like to move on to the portion of the agenda entitled Consent. And for that, I'm going to turn to the Finance Committee, Mr. Cummings, for the approval of the February receipts and disbursements.
Prior to this meeting, the Finance Committee met and reviewed the February receipts and disbursements. Mary has the figures, and I make a motion that we approve the receipts and disbursements.
I'll second that.
Motion by Cummings, seconded by Meering. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion and receipts and disbursements carried and approved. Brings us to new business. A is the interview and selection process for our energy service company, here forward known as ESCO. And for that, I'm going to direct to our Director of Business Services, Martha, for a little background for the board and an introduction for our first company that we're going to interview.
Sure. So first of all, you all have been through the construction management interview process, so this will look very similar. I have already sent you the interview questions that they will either address already in their presentation, or we will ask them following up in their presentation. Got them? Do you have extra copies?
I have 3.
Okay, perfect.
I've got 3
Good?
too. Thank you.
Extra?
So I have, do you want one for each firm?
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Sorry.
I have prepped all of the firms with the exact same questions, mainly because we are not giving them a long time to present their service. So they do know all of these questions. Hopefully they'll address most of them in their presentation, and if they don't, we can follow up. You're certainly welcome to follow up with any additional questions after the presentation if there's something you still don't feel like they answered clearly enough. So, did you have a question, Doug?
No.
Okay.
I do have questioning, didn't I?
There you go.
So we have McKinstry is first, H&H will be our second interview, and ESG Honeywell will be our final interview. I've let them know they have 20 minutes for a presentation, up to 20 minutes, and then we will allow them up to 10 minutes for our follow-up questions. So hopefully we can get through in about an hour and a half. Are there any other questions you have before we start? I guess just one more thing. There is certainly no pressure to make a decision tonight if there's not a clear front runner. I've told them that the board would not make a decision until April 8th. Similar to what we did with construction management.
I do have a
firms.
question.
Yes.
Have we interviewed or looked at references and so forth?
I have started. I got about halfway through today, but I wasn't able to necessarily get a hold of a reference for every single firm, so I didn't want to hand any of those out, but I will follow up with the board with those reference
okay,
checks.
that kind of answers the question
Yep.
with where I may go later
Right.
on. So that's fine. Okay, just wanted to know where we were with that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I will go.
I can go get 'em if you want.
Okay, yeah, we should be out in the hallway or right across. So Dan, just to let you know, I let him know about the 20 minutes
Okay,
20 minutes
great.
for presentation, 10 minutes for follow-up questions.
Awesome.
And we
Yep.
will try and stick to that as best we can tonight, so.
So
I'll
great.
kind of give you I'll do
Sure.
like a 5-minute when
Okay.
we've got 5 minutes
Yeah.
left, so.
Okay.
Okay?
good. So, yeah, thanks for having us. While Kevin gets set up there, I'll just go through real quickly some of introductions real quick. So, I'm Dan, and I'm in charge of business development for Wisconsin. Nick there in the corner, he's regional business development manager. He's not he didn't make the roster there on the.
You gotta be good looking to get on the place, man.
Where's this Nick guy?
So, Nick has 31 years of experience in this business, and so he wanted to come along as well. So Kevin's our account executive, and then Matt is our project manager. So the one person that wanted to be here, unfortunately, his kids have spring break this week, and so he's away on vacation, is Sean. So you'll see his picture on there. He's our energy engineer, project development person for Baraboo Schools, and so. Matt, I guess I didn't. Matt is our project manager for Baraboo Schools. He's also project manager up at UW Baraboo, Sauk County as well. So he would be the day-to-day on-site person for the district as we move forward with the project.
So the placemat in front of you is just kind of the Cliff Notes version of the presentation, kind of highlighting some key points. Kind of as we go along, there's a section there you can write notes on. Take advantage of that if you want to. And
yeah, so typically the way we do these presentations, we kind of run through and let everybody have a chance at a slide. But just with the 20 minutes, I'll just kind of blow through it really quick. So I hope you don't mind that we do it that way. And then if there's any questions, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. And hopefully there'll be time at the end that we can answer any questions for you. So this first slide kind of goes through. This is a question that we'll ask you at some point during the process, whether it's a kickoff meeting or sometime during the process. Is really what we like to do at McKinstry is really look at the outcomes. So what are the things that are important to Baraboo Schools, and so what does this partnership look like? And so define success for us so that we meet the criteria of the district. And one of the things that you'll hear a lot in our presentation is, this is your program, this is your project. We're just going to give you the information so you guys can make a data-driven decision at the end, right? And so we'll give you all the information so you can make a decision at the end. And we're not going to come in with any preconceived notions of what you are looking for, what you want, but we'll give you all the information firsthand. So just quickly in our agenda is, we'll just do a quick overview of who we are. We'll touch on performance contract because that's kind of the essence of our presentation tonight and the reason for why we're meeting. A little bit of a differentiator of the differences between McKinstry and the rest of the energy services world. Some different funding and financing options. We'll go through some of the process and next steps, and like I said, leave enough time for any questions that you guys might have. So a little bit about us. We're the largest privately held energy and facility services company in the nation. 1,800 employees across the country. Locally, our offices are right here on the east side of Madison is our local Wisconsin office. We also do have a Milwaukee office. Regionally, Minneapolis, Kansas City, St. Louis, round out our Midwest offices. We focus 100% on public sector, primarily on the K through 12 market. I would say 70-75% of our business is with the K through 12 world. The rest is really with the state buildings. So UW says UW Baraboo and UW Stevensburg, different UW systems, along with Department of Corrections, kind of makes up the rest of our work. We're going to touch on some of the differences later on in more detail, but really, I think the biggest thing that our customers have said is really our vendor neutrality. We don't manufacture, represent any product. We're not a mechanical contractor that does mechanical service. This is what we do. We're an energy services company that does performance contracting. This is our primary business. I think transparency is really big for our customers. We pride ourselves in being transparent in everything we do. And hopefully you'll see that throughout this presentation. And our experience, I think our experience is second to none in this state, particularly in K through 12, and I think that might be a good segue to the next slide. So here's a recent snapshot of the work that we've done. I think what's important in this, a couple of things. I think last fall, the last statistic I saw, there was about $100 million in approved energy efficiency exemption projects. And as you can see there, we did $65 million of that. So I would say 2/3 of the work that's been done in the state this past fall that's been approved have been done by us. A couple other things that are kind of neat about this is, as you can see in Little Richfield School District, we did a small little $24,000 project up to Oshkosh, where we did a $22 million project. So we run the full gamut in what we want to do. And like I said, it's your project. If you want to scale this to be different, sizes, then we can always do that. One neat thing about most of these districts, take example Oshkosh, we've done 6 phases of work there. Monona Grove, we've done 2 and working on our 3rd phase there. So we're really big in terms of taking this at the speed that you want. We're not going to try to shove a project down your throat in any way. We want to make this comfortable for you in terms of how you want to scale this. So it's very important for us to make sure that happens. So I'll quickly go through what performance contracting is, and really it's to look at the waste streams that are within your budget, and in particular with performance contracting, it's really with your utility budget. So you see that column that says utility cost. Let's just say, for example, a school district sends $1 million to Alliant Energy every year, and we put in new systems, so new HVAC systems, a new building, a new roof, new windows, different systems that we put in, and we'll guarantee, let's just say, 20% off your utility budget. So instead of sending $1 million to Alliant Energy, a school district would send $800,000, and then we guarantee that $200,000 savings. And over a period of 10 years, let's just say that you go out for some sort of borrowing, then that's $2 million worth of work that you potentially can do without going to referendum, or without going to trying to find extra capital. This is all off of waste streams that's within your existing budget. So that's what the essence of performance contracting is. So some of the benefits is there's 3 main guarantees that come with performance contract. One is the guaranteed maximum price. One is the guaranteed savings that we calculate and guarantee and measure and verify, and the guarantee of the performance. We want to make sure that the systems we put in work to the way that we want it to work, so that we can achieve the savings that we're promising. Just quickly go through some of the other things. The facility improvements that we, I think the deferred maintenance is a big key to this. A district that has a large deferred maintenance, we can reduce the amount of deferred maintenance through the performance contracting methodology. There's operational cost avoidance, savings avoidance that can happen through this process. And obviously the improvement to the occupant's environment, so the indoor air quality is really important. I think that last point there is really important. This is in this process, there's a single source accountability. So we take on all the risk in terms of the guaranteed price, the savings, the performance of the equipment coming in. You have one person to turn to. If something goes haywire, you're looking at McKinstry for that. So single source accountability and everything in terms of this. So you don't have to worry about different contractors holding different contracts and all the rest of it. We do all that. We're a single source accountability. So our development, there's, I guess, 3 main parts to the development. One is a preliminary audit. This is kind of a high-level overview, and I think you've had probably 1 or 2 or more done. Really, it's just almost a free audit that kind of takes a high-level overview of what's your situation in that day and period of time. And then after that, if we feel that obviously that there's a project here, which we feel like there is, we would do more of a detailed audit, and in that we would investigate all the things from I would call it a shopping list of stuff. And I don't know, Kevin, if you want to bring up what a typical detailed audit would look like in terms of a deliverable. So halfway through, what we would do is put together a rough order of magnitude, so a ROM. And I'm sorry that this is more of an eye chart than anything else. If you can go to the ROM there, Kevin,
Okay.
real quick. So this is Monona Groves, and really what we would do halfway through the detailed audit is go through all the projects that we feel that we could implement within the project. So what you see is a FIM, which is facility improvement measure, the name, the description, the building that's happening in, kind of a budgetary minimum and maximum, budgetary savings, what the minimum and maximum would be, and then where this is good for you is you can kind of make a choice of, you know what, this makes sense, Dan, no, this doesn't make sense, let's not pursue this project, but let's focus on these 5 or 6 projects. So it gives you a good kind of halfway through point where we can make sure that we're going down the right path or we're not going down the right path. So this is where what I mean by, you know what, we'll give you all the information, we'll work together to make a co-authored solution for you. And then if you go to the next one, the facility improvement measure itself. So this is final. So this is what Monona Grove ultimately came up with. So they took that list, that shopping list of stuff, and they put it into one final project. So just want to give you a sample of what that is. So that's a guaranteed maximum price there. That column that you see in there, you know, in a performance contract, the price is guaranteed. So there's no change orders. There's no price overruns or anything like that. If the price goes over the guaranteed maximum, obviously that's on McKinstry. If it goes under, then unique to us is that we would give that money back to you, the district, or else find more things to do. I know in our Menasha project, they bought a stock full of light bulbs is what they ultimately did with the savings that we were able to achieve. So all of that is very transparent within there. One thing that we do is reconcile our project. We are fee-based, so we bring construction methodology to the ESCO world. So 7% is our fee, and that's open and transparent. We utilize a fee schedule to come up with a guaranteed maximum price. We reconcile that at the end so that you know exactly what the dollars and cents are. So there's nothing hidden in that. Any questions on that?
Well, 7% is the fee, and obviously, but again, justifying the 7%, at some point we see cost savings, and then we can justify saying, okay, these guys are going to save us more than the 7%.
You bet.
Okay.
You bet. Yep. That's the return on investment and all that. That all comes
Do you
with
have
that.
ROI charts for other projects that you've done in the past?
We do. Unfortunately, we didn't bring any ROI, but we do.
That may not be an issue tonight.
Yeah,
but I
we do.
believe that will be something
bet.
we'll ask for.
Yep.
from
We
you.
take it to net present value. Yep. That's that. We do.
Okay.
We call it like cash flow.
Lovely. I would like to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You charge 7% of the total bid, is that it?
Yes. Of the construction. Yep. Exactly.
Let me ask a question. Are there any other markups anywhere with things that go through your office, whether it's services or parts, other markups?
So
Just the 7%.
The 7% is our profit. So when we come up with the guaranteed maximum price, we obviously put together, if there's a labor material, right, that you get, and then if there's some design engineering that needs to be done. So let's just say that a geothermal system requires quite a bit of heavy engineering. So we put that as construction cost, typical construction cost that we put in, and we reconcile that at the end. So we might be conservative on putting together GMP, but then we reconcile those dollars at the end so that you know exactly where those things come in. And if it comes in under that guaranteed maximum price, then obviously that goes back. And so instead of just running up to whatever the dollar amount the guaranteed maximum price is, what we do is reconcile that so you know exactly what the difference is.
Okay.
Oh, the delivery of our projects. I don't know, Matt, if you want to take a few minutes on this, I'll try to go through this slide as best as I can. But I think a couple of things that are really important in here is this is the bread and butter to what we do, right? We install these projects. We design these things and we build projects. So this is exactly what we focus quite a bit on, Matt and his team. I think the big thing here is the training, the aftercare is really important because we want to make sure that once we put in system, we're not just going to leave you guys, because we have a guarantee on the performance and the savings at the end of this. So we'll make sure that Pat and his staff are well trained in terms of the systems that we install, and there's obviously the aftercare, the measurement verification. I think that's a really important key to performance contracting is, we all came from different organizations, and one thing that we found that really lacked in our other organization was the measurement and verification of the savings that we're promising. And so we're really conscious about early on making sure that the district understands how are we going to measure and verify. What is the math behind our savings? And so we have a M&V workshop is what we call it early on. So you guys know at the end of year one, we're not coming back with some numbers that just don't make sense to you. You know exactly how we're going to measure and verify each one of the measures as we.
What were the NN&D?
M&V.
Sorry, measurement and verification. That
Oh,
bottom,
M&V,
bottom right.
yeah,
Sorry,
M&V.
measurement and verification.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So this is, I just happen to have this in my bag. This is for that Little Richfield school. So this is actually the report that we give to them that kind of goes through the projects, the savings that we actually have, and things like that. So I need this back, but you guys can pass this around if you
You
want.
give that to them after the project is
Correct.
over, upon it, there's an annual review?
Annual. So that is a year 2 report. So
Okay.
yep.
And Dan, what happens, you know that we're talking about potential referendum with
Mhm.
additions to the buildings. What happens if we start a project and in the middle we add on, and how do you change that baseline measurement?
Yeah, so it really kind of depends on if it's a significant addition, so let's take, for example, you have your building, you want to add a totally new wing. Obviously, there's going to be more utility costs that are going to occur because you're adding a whole new wing onto a building. So we would adjust our baseline according to that. But if it's a few things that are pretty small scale, then we wouldn't. We typically have a buffer in there for that. But yeah, that's a good point, because the second thing on that is we want to make sure that if you are going to referendum, we want to know what that scope is, because we don't want anything that we do to be a stranded investment for you. And so we work hard to work with, let's say, an Epstein Ewan in your district with the architects or whoever the CM or general contractor would be, to make sure that, let's just say that we're doing a building envelope project in a certain area that's going to be demolished, and we obviously don't want to focus on or do that project if we know that potentially could be a stranded investment for the district. So yeah, we make sure that happens. So this is, I'll quickly go through value-added services. These are some of the other things that we do. One of the things that would be interesting here would be this Power Ed program, and really what it is, it's kind of scalable to however you would like. It's a behavioral modification, kind of an energy awareness, gets the kids and the staff and the students real excited about energy efficiency and energy awareness, not only within their classroom but at home. There's different fun things that we've done, so that's one of the programmatic things. One of the things that a lot of districts have, because we put in new systems, and I'm not sure where you are with service contracts and different things like that, because we don't hold any service contracts, or we're not a service organization in terms of having trucks that roll around, is we can take a look and see where we can find, like I said, there's different waste streams within your budget. One might be the utilities, which we're talking about a lot tonight, but one might be in your service contracts. And I use Madison School as an example. They had a $400,000 annual service contract with Honeywell, and with our changes in terms of our project there, we're able to negotiate to give them a little more value for what they're getting in terms of that. We can take that as savings, and obviously if you utilize the energy efficiency exemption, they're looking for different savings opportunities like that. They call it out in terms of both energy and operational savings. So, but anyway.
One other piece I wanted to touch on, kind of going back to that schedule, is we would work with the school district as well as far as class schedules go, so there isn't any interruption to the classes. So we wouldn't tell you, hey Martha, can you tell the principal that we need the classrooms A through C unoccupied? We would not do that. We would work around that class schedule, so there isn't any interruptions. Even if it requires particular after hours work to be done, we would accomplish it that way.
Yeah, certain projects we tend to do second shift. Lighting is a good example. Building envelopes another good example. We can be in during the unoccupied hours and clean up in such a way that the space is ready to go next morning. Some projects obviously have to wait till typical summer time frame, and if there's summer schools, we work around summer schools. We're used to doing that. If there's pools, that we have to work around those schedules. A lot of communities have those type of things that we're very accustomed to working around. So.
So funding opportunities, obviously, we know what we know, and there's a lot of funding opportunities that are out there that we don't know about, and so we lean heavily on districts' financial advisors. Baird is Robert W. Baird is a good partner of ours that we use in terms of relying on, in terms of helping mutual clients, in terms of finding different funding mechanisms and doing different things with to get these projects done. We have utilized different financing options, the QZAB, the QSCBs, the Build America bonds, state trust fund loans, municipal leases. We really have focused heavily on the incentives, so any types of grants, rebates, incentives that are out there. UW Baird was actually a good example of that. They had a Department of Energy, like a $500,000 grant that we were able to work with them to get them to put that to get some additional projects done over there. And so EPACT is a unique one to McKinstry. That's the Energy Policy Act in 2005. What they allowed there is any entity that does an energy efficiency projects gets a tax deduction, really what it is, and obviously a school district not paying federal tax doesn't qualify. However, they have a provision in there where the designer or the engineer that puts those efficiencies in gets a deduction. And so what we've done is quantify that dollar amount that we get deducted, and we give that back to our customers. So very unique to McKinstry in terms of doing that. So instead of just taking that for ourselves, we give that back to our customers. So. And then obviously the last bullet there, the energy efficiency revenue limit exemption, which is a big tool that's out there now through Act 32, and we're able to take advantage of that, and you saw all the model work that we've done.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So is it once the detailed audit is done, then we sit down with you guys and go through all of those different funding opportunities to see which one would really suit us best?
Yeah, we do that day one.
Okay.
We want to make sure that all those things are out on the table, so we know, there's different quirky things like with QZAB. I'm not sure if that applies to this district, but there's some regulations, quirky things to that we want to make sure we hit that up front, so we know what so we work, I would say at the kickoff meeting, that's the first thing that we do, is talk through some of the funding mechanisms that are out there.
And some of the utility incentives require pre-work, if you will, or pre-approval. So you have to get those teed up early on to be able to capture those.
How are we doing on time real quick?
You got a couple minutes.
Okay, so then I won't really go through the revenue limit exemption, but this is an important tool that's been out there, and really it's gone through the last 2 bienniums, and really what it allows in this latest biennium is the ability to borrow funds over a period of time, utilize some dips in your debt levy in order to capture some of those some of those levy dollars that might be out there. So. We just kind of skip through this.
Okay.
We're running out of time. So, just a timeline. I really do want to hit this. I know that one thing important to Baraboo is to make sure that we can capture some summertime construction, and we should easily be able to do that. We'll take the next couple of months to go through the audits and come through and do the detailed audit and the rough order magnitude. As you saw our spreadsheets up there. May-June timeframe, we really want to finalize that phase 1 scope and price, and make sure that we have the guaranteed maximum price all put together with the savings. And then hopefully by June, when the kids get out, that we can start construction and get going on the implementation. So one thing that is good here is that Matt's up here a lot with UW Baraboo, so he's the same project manager that's there. And here, so that would make it a lot easier for that, just because we can hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So
That's still a current project?
that is, yeah. I mean, you might know better. And
We're substantially complete, but we're actually looking at doing some additional work that they're interested in. There was some, back to the contingency and reconciliation, there was some money left over, so we're looking at utilizing that for some additional work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they walk down the hill.
So why McKinstry? You can read all this, but really, I think it really boils down to 3 things that we've heard continuously from our clients is why McKinstry is our people, and we're not afraid to say we're an employee-first company, and really what that philosophy is pretty unique to us because we're able to hire the best because we take care of our people, and so we feel that means that it projects onto our customers, and so I would put our local team here on against any other local team that's does this type of work, and so I think our people is first, and the second is our references. I would suggest to call any of our references and anybody on those lists and ask them about their McKinstry experience, because I think those are the people that would tell the most honest truths. And then the third thing is just our unique business philosophy, right? Our transparency, our vendor neutrality, our willingness to use local contractors and local participation as much as possible. So that those are all things, flexibility, our scalability, all those unique things to McKinstry are what sets ourselves different. So.
I have a quick question. In your timeline, April, May would be the study, May, June, finalize the performance contract. Getting really close to summer. Have you ever had that late of a start and been able to have a successful summer? Because a lot of items you got to get out there 3 months before.
Yeah. So we would work with you to see, obviously if you're looking for a steam to hot water conversion, right? I mean, we would have to really work hard to see what the lead time on boilers would be, or univentilators, or whatever it may be.
Sure.
So yeah, we would. We're getting close to that time right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think you're still at a good spot where we still can get some things.
When you get bids, you take local bids, you also get bids, let's say like from Madison, also, not
Yes.
just Peerville, although we like to deal local.
Right, and so we work with the district to see what their preferred contracts, and really what that question is more, which contract would you not like to work with, right? And a lot of times it's like that, but yeah, so, and if you don't have any local contractors or contractors that you've worked with in the past in particular things, then we obviously have partners that we've utilized. So we work in conjunction with the district to see what are the preferred contractors and local contractors.
Like say electrical, how many bids would you normally get?
Typical 3. So yeah, 3 bids is what we typically get for each one of our facility improvement measures. So going down that list.
Yeah, depending on the list of locals, we'll invite as many as there are.
Yeah.
We've had cases where we've had 10 contractors that are pre-bid, and many times not all of them choose to bid it after, locking on project, but yeah, it varies a lot. We've had other cases where we've had 2 bidders, it's just.
Yeah.
And then where is the district involved in that process? I mean, do you have us at the table while you're opening bids, or how does that work?
We leave that up to you. We've done
Okay.
it. We've done it to one extreme where we receive the bids and we make a decision. And if you want to be involved in that, we've done public bid openings, sealed bids, and had you there and helped her open the envelope and help do the bid tab. So
Okay.
both extremes, yeah, whatever you prefer.
A lot of information here.
Yeah.
The PowerPoint, could you get that to Martha?
You bet.
And those slides that you gave earlier regarding Monona Grove. The one that I had, and then there was another one. You had the Monona Grove, I kind of like the final project, but I know in here, I don't think the preliminary was there. It was for another school district.
Okay.
Could we see like the Monona Grove like preliminary?
Yep.
I'd just like to see how it went from one stage to that final stage.
You bet.
The other ones.
What they chose off of
Yeah,
that first
you
list.
gave an example
Yeah.
for another school district, then you went to Monona
Yeah,
Grove.
not a problem.
And I'm starting to get the acronyms, the M and V, measurement and verification. I know you gave a report that you wanted back, but could you get us a copy of that to Martha, and then so that we can maybe review that more closely. And I think there was one other question that we have, and it's about troubleshooting when the project starts. If we had a problem with how the work was progressing, sometimes obviously any project issues can happen, and as much as the best made plan. How would you handle that?
Yeah, so obviously, and I'll just start, Matt, and you can continue on, but really, I think I mentioned the single source accountability. So the first call that you would make would be to, and Matt does weekly project meetings and all the rest as we go forward, and so that would obviously elicit conversations in those meetings. But yeah, the first call would be to us, obviously, and then you can go ahead and take it from there.
Yeah, was your question, are you talking at the beginning of the project or during the project?
During the project,
Okay.
something happens and
Yep.
suddenly some issues.
Yeah, so the
start.
most important piece is the regular progress meetings. We do them in most cases weekly, particularly during summer, just because the work is so intense and there's so much going on. If we're doing work during the school year, it might be a meeting every 2 weeks, and we leave it up to you.
Sure.
Who wants to be involved in that? Some districts, the superintendent's there, and You know, some it's just a buildings and grounds person, so it's totally up to you in terms of involvement. But
Mhm.
yeah, when issues arise, we hope to be proactive and catch them before they come up, so that we're collaborating on, you know, what we're doing and when we're doing. But certainly when things come up, yeah, it's either caught in a meeting or
We have,
call us.
and we have obviously subcontract agreements with our subcontractors. So after we select our contractor that would perform the work, and we have an agreement with them, and we work with them if something goes haywire or whatever.
Mhm.
Obviously, that is on our onus to make sure that gets rectified. So.
Yep.
Okay, great.
This list of client examples, or perhaps the third or fourth slide, which was a longer list of client examples, what period of time does this cover? That is,
So all the energy efficiency projects were all in the
Yeah.
last year. So
They
that,
were.
Yes, that was all.
That's
in-
what I thought you
yeah,
said.
That was all in the last year. All the projects there were within the last 2 or 3 years though,
Okay.
overall. Yep.
Yep.
okay.
They were approved. Some of those are still under installation.
Sure.
Like Oshkosh, as an example, is, we're just going into the first season of installation. So that 22 million is actually being installed over a 2-year period because of the size of it and how many schools we're affecting.
Mhm.
In comparison, you on your, for your DES, or which is the directed engineering study, show that it's 5 cents square foot.
Mhm.
How often do you actually go in and do a study and they not take any of your recommendations? I guess my question is, how often does that fee come back to the district? Has it?
I don't think that has ever happened. I think every DES has gone to a contract where we roll it into.
Does
the
it
project.
have to be a percentage of what you recommend to be considered?
No, it typically could be one project if you really wanted to, but really at that point the cost of the 5 cents per square doesn't really make sense in terms of the savings and all the
Right.
rest. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it could be as many or as little. Right?
Part of that gets vetted out during the round process. We're kind of unique in how we position the round process, where we bring that larger list with ranges of savings, ranges of cost, and collaboratively we decide on which items to move forward with, so that we don't waste your time and we don't waste our time developing things that we're not going to do for a long time. So that's part of where that gets vetted out.
Mhm.
How long do you stay with us afterward? That is, how many years are we getting the annual reports and?
Right, and so with the energy efficient, if you utilize that tool that's out there, then they want us to measure and verify for the length of the term that you utilize that exemption. So if it's from Oshkosh's example, they went 20 years.
Mhm.
So we'll be measuring, verifying year 17, 18, 19, 20. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Any other board members with any questions?
Hopefully I made the time.
You did, perfect, right on time.
Sorry, I
You
talked-
talked pretty fast.
Yeah, sorry.
There's a lot of stuff, that's why I say, give us the
That's
information,
why
I'll
they
look
gave
at
you
it
this
again.
job. I mean,
Just so you know.
Gotta talk fast.
And I'll make sure, Kevin, did you get all his requests?
Yep.
And Martha, you can get that measure
Super.
verification
Yeah.
report. I'll get it.
Okay.
Yeah, just get it to Martha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's why we all have days
I'll have
on
it.
our eyes.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Ron just heard back from Arizona, and he was telling me somebody has actually passed out on his plane, and he's like, I have to come back for a presentation. The person was like,
Are we ready?
Yeah, so.
My Dell's still booting up.
Oh,
so
yeah. So just a reminder to you guys, once everything's booted up.
That's when the time.
20-minute presentation. I'll try and give you a 5-minute reminder.
Okay.
And then a couple minutes at the end for questions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yep.
Well, this is why you guys are on Max.
Yes.
Mine took a while.
It does take a little bit. All right, here we go.
Jeez, enough stuff there.
It looks like mine, but once every 2 months. Then I try to refile everything.
Am I the last guy between you guys and happy hour, or?
We will be. No, no, that's too
Within the same.
Well, we're already out of happy hour.
The same bid, not
We're safe. Too late already.
We're too happy already.
proposal.
Too late already.
I just have a couple other files open up here in case some questions come up.
That's more than $10.
Okay. All right, you got the timer going?
I do.
Okay,
Good to
all right,
go.
well, thanks again. I wanted, again, my name's Ron Garrison. I'm with Honeywell Energy Services Group, so let me introduce the team here. So, myself, a little history with me. I did graduate from West Point. A lot of people say, you went to West Point. I go, yeah, I even graduated. So, many, many years ago. Was actually a school board member back in Illinois, so I understand kind of a little bit what you guys have done on the other side of the table there. And again, I'm the primary contact for it. Dave Huckster is my partner in crime here. Dave?
I'm the kind of the technical end of the team here. I'm a professional engineer. I've been with Honeywell for 19 years, doing exactly what you guys are investigating doing. So, hence all the gray hair. Been in the industry for a long time. And similar to Ron, I work out of our, or not similar to Ron, but I work out of our Madison office. I live in Sun Prairie, and actually I'm a citizen representative on a school board planning committee for the city, or the Sun Prairie School District. So interesting being here with you guys.
And then all your initials there, Dave?
I'm a professional engineer. I'm a lead accredited professional leadership in energy and environmental design. And graduated from UW-Madison in mechanical engineering.
Okay. All right, that is working. The first thing I just want to do is, certainly you guys know your own mission statement, but I always like to look at a district's mission statement. And the one that I wanted to highlight here in red particularly caught my attention. One of my platforms, I guess you will say, when I was on the school board was, you know, if you think education's expensive, try ignorance. And so that's how I kind of look at this, and I think that's how you guys look at it here. Because you're really saying, you know, education is an investment. And you have to make an investment in order to kind of move the education forward. So I related to that, and I really understand what you guys are trying to do here, you know, at the district. All right, a couple of things. You know, we're talking about performance contracting, and we talk about it in some context because that's how the state refers to it. And I'm going to make a few distinctions with it. But this is a kind of a slide that talks about some of the positives within performance contracting. But the two that I do want to highlight is we want to try to work in conjunction with the Epstein-Uhing study. I know you've got a lot of things going on, and I'll talk about that further, maybe how we can leverage different things, but understanding what you're trying to do with potential referendum next year. And also there are some unique things within Wisconsin that I think Martha's familiar with. It's called the Revenue Limit Energy Exemption, and that allows you to leverage some creative funding solutions of how you get things done. If you think about what we do, we really do three things. Okay? We help identify, fund, and implement energy savings projects. Okay? Identification is a key part of it, but for the most part, Patrick's probably identified a lot of this stuff. I'll skip over funding for a second, and the third one's implementation. And you know, when you get ready to implement something, if you've got the money, people are beating on your door to do it. So the funding is the key part. That's usually the tricky part. So we want to make sure that we're trying to leverage everything that the state's going to allow you to do in order to help fund projects that you need to get done. Now, I mentioned that, you know, the term's performance contracting because that's how it's set up in the statute. We've really kind of more coined the phrase comprehensive facility planning. So a lot of people just think of performance contracting as maybe this part with the infrastructure. But there are a lot of other things that we can do that the statutes allow us to do that's not just maybe pure facilities. And those are some things that we can do to leverage some money, put maybe some potential money back into your operating budget that allows you to do some other things as well as upgrading your infrastructure. So we like this CFP terminology, and sometimes I may refer to it, but it's really synonymous for the most part with performance contracting. Okay, now the next thing I wanted to talk about, Patrick probably remembers that we did a preliminary study of your district probably about 18 months or so ago. And that's maybe from 10,000 feet maybe down to 5,000 feet. And I believe a copy of the preliminary study was in the RFQ response. So when we looked at it, for part of this presentation, I wanted to maybe just kind of compartmentalize, kind of think about how we would approach the study. So if we look at the different schools across here, and I'll call it kind of the different disciplines between lighting, HVAC, controls, ventilation, boilers, etc., how would we approach this? And we tried to structure this a little bit as to, all right, what are the best payback items and what are the highest need items? So 1-1 would have short payback and a high need. Now, the thing is, you guys don't have a lot of 1-1s because Patrick and his staff has done a very good job of doing maybe what we'll call the low-hanging fruit. But when we looked at this, we said there's probably are some areas that would need attention. Now, again, I'm at the 5,000 foot level. I'm not down to the deep level yet, but these are some things that we at least identified that we think could be some initial focus items that we would go with. And I think some of these are supported also by the Epstein study. And I structured this a couple of different ways. Number one, I think most of the needs are in 2 of the schools. And I think, again, that was part of the Epstein thing. But then we also see some needs going this way. And again, depending on where we end up with the actual facility improvement measures, the work, I think it's important that we have a structure like this for a couple of reasons. The primary one being, if we look at disciplines across the district, now we're touching all the schools. And I know this is a bit of a political consideration, so it's important that everybody in the community feels like, well, why is my school not getting any money? Why is my school not getting some additional improvements? So I think it's important when we go into a performance contract, a comprehensive facility planning, that we look at it both ways. We look at the schools with some of the most needs across this way, but we also look at some of the disciplines that will cut across there, so that we're touching all the schools. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about what we saw in the study?
Yeah, just want to reiterate what Ron said, that Patrick and Doug and his Patrick's team have really done a nice job through the years utilizing money that has been available to implement some of the things that we normally implement, lighting retrofits and boiler burner upgrades. They've done a lot of control work. They've got an excellent backbone of a control system. So that's why you don't see a lot of 1s in the paybacks, because they've done a lot of that stuff. Where some of your biggest needs is where a lot of your additional energy savings lies. You've got some 40, 50-year-old boilers in the district, East Elementary, West Elementary. I mean, those are long payback items to replace a boiler or to take an old steam system and retrofit it to a more efficient hot water system. But it really is a need that's out there that you're going to have to address eventually. That's where we think we can get some additional energy savings by looking at those bigger ticket, long payback items and implementing with some of the funding that Ron mentions. Single pane windows is another one where the payback isn't that great, but it's really something that needs to be addressed. East and West elementaries have a lot of single pane windows. Would be another good example of there's energy savings there, but it's a bigger ticket item. But ultimately, you've done a lot of the easy stuff. Now you have to dig in, do some additional big ticket items, and then just continue to do some of the things that Patrick and his team have been doing with continuing lighting upgrades and control system improvements.
And again, I'm not saying, this is certainly not a comprehensive list. I said we kind of got it down a little bit, and this would be something we'd want to fine tune and hone, obviously with Patrick and his staff as we start moving forward with a project. But I just want to kind of get you a feel, big picture wise, how would we approach it and where did we see some of your needs from the study that we did?
Did you clarify
sorry.
what those needs were in that report? I mean, I just see in numbers 3 and 1, but like specifically it was this boiler and when you were looking at this report.
Well, we created this in essence from the preliminary report that's in the appendix.
Epstein.
I'm sorry?
Epstein's report or your report?
Actually, a little of both.
Okay.
We looked at both when we created this high level.
And there's a lot of items that were in our original preliminary report, which I think was in the appendix of our RFQ response.
Yeah, it's to be towards the back there.
And in the Epstein report.
Okay.
It's, we don't have any secrets when it comes to identifying needs and opportunities. As Patrick, when he read our report, probably wasn't surprised with a lot of the stuff that we come up with. Mm-hmm. It's just that we tie everything together with the identify, the fund, and the implement into a turnkey package and approach. So.
But also, again, I want to emphasize the strategy where I think if we try to dovetail performance contracting with potential referendum is again that we're trying to touch a majority of the buildings. I think that's important from a political and community aspect as to what's the benefit from this, from doing this project, and everybody can get a little behind a little piece of it. Any other questions on this? And again, you said kind of 10,000 feet, maybe I brought you down to 5,000 feet. We would really need to fine tune that going deeper, but this was just kind of to get you what we're thinking going into this. I want to talk a little bit about the energy efficiency exemption. If you're not totally familiar with it, but this is actual language from the statute. I'm not going to read that. That's boring. But there have been some changes to this. That's why it's very popular right now with a lot of districts. And let me explain what those changes were. This act was originally created back in 2009, and it was called an energy efficiency exemption. And so it allows you, if you remember when you set your budgets every year, there's a line item on your budget worksheet that says revenue limit energy exemption. So in essence, it allows you to increase your revenue limit, which in essence is a taxing ability by the school district, by the amount of the energy project. When it was originally set up, the project had to be, Act 28 set it up, the project had to be completed, funded, paid for within the same fiscal year. Okay, that was the original constraints on it. It was changed in 2011. And what the change incurred is that now it tied it to 660133, which is the performance contracting statute in the state legislation. And that then tied it to an ESCO, which is what we and probably a couple other people here were. So now it had to be governed under the performance contracting statute. They also put this as that it results in avoidance of reduction in energy cost or operational cost. So that's saying, you have a capital cost avoidance. You may have to buy a boiler. So it doesn't have to be a self-funding project. The project doesn't have to pay for itself. It just has to result in the avoidance of energy or operational costs. So that gave it a little bit more flexibility. And then they really opened it up by saying, okay, now you can finance it over 20 years. So you don't have that 1 year. That was changed in 2011. The difference has been fairly substantial in the state. The last year that this one was, in 2010, 2011, I may be a little off on the numbers, but there was probably about $9 million used statewide by school districts using the energy efficiency exemption under the old rules. The first year that this one was in effect, under this way, it was about $90 million. And I think I put an article, one of the Oshkosh articles in, and actually I gave you one more, in your packet. Now, some of that's from a couple of big school districts, Racine and Oshkosh, but that's what that change of the rule opened up. And that's one thing that the district should consider taking advantage of. Now, so what it actually means dollar-wise, and I'll just do this. Your guys' tax base is about $1.6 billion. That's off your budget worksheets. So let's say we're looking at a $2 million project using the revenue limit exemption. And that's the number that Martha gave me. So if we were under the old rules, you had to use $2 million, get her done, within the same year. You take that, divide by evaluation, it would be about an impact of $1.25 on your mill rate. That's under the old rules. Under the new rules, let's say you just finance at 15, you could go 20, and I use 3%. Rates are probably lower than that, but that's about $165,000 a year. You can now use the revenue limit exemption each year for $165,000 instead of the $2 million. So then that equates out to 10 cents per thousand impact on your mill rate. So that's kind of get a feel for why a lot of districts are looking at this, because now they can take these longer term type projects, boilers and the like, that's going to have a longer payback. They can still finance it over a period of time, and they can fund it each year using the revenue limit energy exemption. So I just want to kind of get your head wrapped around how this funding mechanism can help when we start talking about performance contracting. Now, I also wanted to say one thing. Is a couple months ago I did a presentation with Bob Tess, who's a business manager at Oshkosh, and Michelle Weiberg, who works for PMA, kind of like a Baird. And Oshkosh has done a lot, if you saw that they were referenced in that article. The presentation was called the three-legged stool for getting facility stuff done. And the three legs were your fund balance, what's his budget, maybe the fund balance or his budget every year, referendum, and revenue limit exemption. How can you use those in conjunction? Where does it make sense to go after certain projects? How do you want to use other money? And that's what Oshkosh has certainly done. So I was part of that presentation as we talked about it. And that's why I think it's important for the district to understand is there's a lot of other mechanisms, multiple levers that you can pull here to make this work. All right, Martha called me after we were selected, and she gave me some follow-up questions, so hopefully I got them right. I want to go hit those now, and then we'll do a quick summary. I think I'm getting there. I got 5 minutes? Okay. First one is the bidding process. Let me just talk real quick. Absolutely, one of our main goals is keep the money local. We want to use what vendors you've had success with. One of the first things we do, we're going to ask Patrick, give us a list of vendors, again, that you've had success with. Now I'll say, we're not going to put an ad in the paper. We're not interested in inviting everybody. We're not bound by low bid. That's in the statute. We don't have to do low bid because we have to guarantee the savings, have to guarantee the performance. But we absolutely want to use what vendors he's had success with that worked, and they will be part of the bidding process. Pricing of the projects. If you looked at some of the details in my appendix where we had the references and we had these film matrix, these kind of different color matrix, there's 2 parts of that define our pricing. One is each individual film, which is a facility improvement measure, is how we define it. Maybe it's lighting in a certain school, it's boiler. Each of those have their own line item that includes cost, energy savings, payback in years. The cost is based on what we analyzed that we think it's going to take to do that job. There's a markup in there. We're not a nonprofit. Get that clear right away. So there is a markup on that. That markup's going to vary somewhere between 12 and 18%. Now let me emphasize one other thing though. Because we have a lot of internal resources that do a lot of work that some other vendors may subcontract. We have our own lighting guy. He's going to do the engineering and the design work. We have our own ventilation guys, same type of thing. We have our own HVAC people. We have our own design people, engineers that would design a boiler replacement. By doing that, we now have a lower cost. So if we have a lower cost, the same markup as everybody else, the benefits Baraboo District. So that's how the prices are, how the projects are priced. There's also a section in there that's called PDC&B. That's project development, commissioning, and bonding. That's in essence our fee to be the general contractor to manage the project, and that varies based on the size of the project. So that's how our pricing part works. Martha asked me about resolving issues. Let me just say this. Anybody who's going to walk up to you and say there's never going to be an issue, is kidding you. And I've worked for a lot of different companies, and it's not necessarily if you have an issue, it's how do you respond when an issue does occur. And we are organized that way to make sure we're in control of the subcontractors. We're the one throat to choke, if you will, if there's issues on your side. But we are absolutely working directly to make sure that we can minimize issues and that we're able to handle issues as they come up. The other part of the question was in the M&V phase. M&V is measurement verification. There's a very lengthy section in the write-up as respect to how we approach M&V and how if things change, how we deal with that. I can certainly handle additional questions along those lines, but there is a science to it. There is some industry standards around it that we support.
What section was that in?
It was an answer to one of your questions that asked about M&V.
It's in here?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the main body.
Okay.
And I can point it out when we're done here.
Okay.
Maximize rebates and grants. We have grant writing teams. We have people who are working directly with Focus on Energy, which is a state-funded organization, with the state, whatever, to make sure that as anything changes, we know and we're identifying those. So we actually have a separate team and that's what they focus on. I do have a copy of the timeline up here, and I think the important thing with the timeline is, given we would want to get started as soon as possible. You're looking to make a decision in your next board meeting, April 8th. If you see in my timeline, I want to get started April 15th because we're bound by a couple of things. One is we have to have the projects identified before you set your budget because that's how the revenue limit exemption works. So that has to be done sometime in that October timeframe. And the timeline works to that. We would do majority of work, after hours, spring training or whatever. There's non-intrusive work that we can do during the school year where we can make that happen. There's also a discussion in there about fast track projects. What fast track projects are, if Patrick knows something needs to get done, we can identify it now, actually implement it this summer, and we pay for it and tack it onto the total project when we finally decide on it. And you'll see some discussions on the timeline and in the RFQ about that. Okay, I'm getting ready to sum up here. So If you miss this tonight, I get cut off. This is actually going to be on Letterman later tonight. That's the top 10. So, so the first one is experience. And we talked about that. We talked about our years of experience. You see the gray in David Mine's hair, but that's not, there's more behind that. But we absolutely have the experience. Second part is we have the expertise. All the people have only lots of years of experience, but they're trained in those disciplines we talked about. We work specifically with the public sector. We work with school districts, higher ed, city governments, but we understand what those nuances are of those groups. Next, we have the internal resources. I mentioned earlier how we're able to reduce the cost, and they're listing those people that are listed in our old project, people who are in charge of the lighting, who are going to do that design. We're not sub that out. We're bringing that cost in-house, reduces the cost, that makes the project lower on your end by utilizing those internal resources. We are vendor neutral. I know we got the Honeywell name on here. Honeywell kind of dabbled in performance contracting years back. They didn't like the way their model was. They acquired a company called ESG. And part of the deal was ESG says, okay, we'll do the performance contracting piece, but we've got to be vendor neutral. We cannot be tethered to Honeywell. We are absolutely not tethered to Honeywell. We're a separate subsidiary. We get a little input from them because we got a little extra money and we got a little other backing. But the ESG model has been and always will be vendor neutral. Our goal is to maximize your project. Next, we're going to customize the project. If we're able to move forward with you guys, you will hear me say this 100 times. This is your project. It's not our project. It's your project. We're going to identify what we think needs to be done. You and your staff and however you want to set it up are the ones who are going to decide what actually gets done. It's 100% your project. Next, maximize the savings. Again, we're looking for where we can get the biggest bang for the buck. Talked a little bit about that matrix, but we're going to dig in and we're going to find out where the savings are and maximize them. Still your decision what to do, but we're really focusing on maximizing your savings and with that also reducing your costs. Again, how can we get this done most efficiently with still guaranteed results, but we're going to reduce those costs, and a lot of that's my overhead structure I discussed earlier. Our process involves everybody because these projects don't work if everybody's not involved. And that includes the community, that includes the teachers. We'll do a comfort survey across the board with your teachers. We can help them. They'll help us identify things. Sometimes we've involved the students, but it's important that everybody gets involved. When we start talking these types of projects and this type of money, if you don't have full backing within the community, it can go awry. Number two, I think we have a good understanding of the Baraboo challenges. I know you work with Mike Clark with Baird. We've worked with Mike Clark with Baird. As soon as I saw the Epstein study, I sat down with the Epstein folks. Tell me how we can kind of dovetail these projects. That three-legged stool, what can we do referendum? What can we do revenue limit exemption? What's going to be the best strategy for the district to get both sets of projects done? And those pieces we work with. Martha sent me the list of your attorneys. I want to forget his name. Frank Sutherland is on that list. He's the one we worked with at Poinet and I think Parkview as well. So we have experience with some of the same people you're working with. And the number one reason that to do business with us, every customer is a reference. That's not just words on the paper. That's what we absolutely drive to do. I listed dozens of different accounts on there, and our goal is to make every single one a reference. And we go into every project with that goal, with that understanding, and not resting until we know it's done. And that's what I think is great about us. I think that's what makes us very successful. I believe we've done somewhere over 400 million jobs over the last 5 years or so in multiple states. And we exceed our guarantees by over 27%. So if we say we're going to save you $100, we're really saving you 127. And that's just extra money goes back to you, helps reinforce the reducing of the cost. All right, I think I got 2 more slides, hopefully. So I just want to put a couple of quotes. Mark Belke, just finishing up, or in the part, we finished up the overall stage, we're in part of the construction phase right now. Mark Belke, Shorewood School District, about $6.1 million. One of our references. I mentioned we do work with higher ed. UW Milwaukee, we're probably on phase 6, somewhere around $40 million total. Again, helping them reduce their cost, drive it. Again, totally vendor neutral. Questions? How'd I do on time?
Pretty good. Got about 7 minutes for questions. So.
I went 7 minutes over?
No, just about 3 minutes.
You only have 3 minutes.
But you're good.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right.
Again, you emphasize the fact you're vendor neutral, and obviously the Honeywell name would obviously drive a question. Is there a significant portion of your projects that are still Honeywell based? You know, with your. Okay.
It's not even a consideration. I mean, if a customer, we go into a customer, Parkview School District, they already had Honeywell equipment, so we're going to talk about, okay, how do we expand their Honeywell equipment, if that's what makes sense.
Sure.
The UW Milwaukee that I mentioned, they're entirely Johnson Controls. It doesn't make sense to replace Johnson Controls with Honeywell. You're not getting the efficiencies. We're buying from Johnson Controls.
Johnson Controls was actually our largest subcontractor at UW Milwaukee.
Okay.
And here, and really, Honeywell makes controls, HVAC controls. You guys are invested in, I think it's reliable controls. It's a great control system. We're not going to pull any of that out. We're going to work with your existing controls vendor and optimize your existing system.
Okay.
And again, when you think about how you think about controls, but we're touching other things. We're touching lighting, Honeywell component there. We're touching building envelope. That's not a Honeywell component. So we have to be experts in lots of different disciplines in order to make this work. And our goal is not to put Honeywell product in here. Our goal is to get the project that's going to maximize your savings.
Sure. Okay. The PowerPoint, if you could get that to Martha, that would
Sure.
be greatly appreciated. As far, anybody else, maybe I can take a question right now. So, thank you.
Regarding timing of projects, as you know, we have a potential referendum coming up.
Yep.
We've got deferred maintenance items we're trying to find a way to fund, and then this is kind of the third part of it, kind of the three-legged stool. I know you had West up there as one of the highest needs right now, in the options we're looking at, that would most likely become a district administrative office as well as some alternative education space. How do you kind of work with that, knowing that that whole building might actually change, but it obviously needs some things upgraded for energy efficiency?
Well, I mean, we can absolutely include it as part of the survey. I mean, if you want to think about what you want to do with that building, now you got a question mark on the long-range plans. But a couple of things, first of all, we really got to understand the end date of this.
Right.
In order to take advantage. If we don't get it in time when you're doing your budget, then that $260,000, whatever the debt that's dropping off, you're not going to be able to leverage that. So we need to get smart about the study. So I guess we'll do, if this is not too much of an oxymoron, kind of a focused, comprehensive. And that's why it's important that we kind of compartmentalize things early on. And early on, we really understand from Patrick, what are the goals, what can we get done quickly, and get those identified. Because in order for it to be part of the revenue limit exemption, we have to have those calculations done that's going to say what the savings are. And we're guaranteeing the savings. So we might have to get smart along those lines. Now, if you use the revenue limit exemption on the cash flow that I did, the one beauty of it, and this is all not going to get on here, but I tried to show, and again, I estimated some savings, so don't necessarily owe me the savings. But what this is showing is that if we use the revenue limit exemption that matches the debt service, okay, then that means any of the energy savings go right to your bottom line. So what that then means is, okay, so what are you going to do with an extra, 50 grand, 52 grand? Well, is that another teacher? Is that some improvements in that office? Is that IT structure? Do you need more Macs or whatever? So that's the advantage to maximizing revenue limit exemption. So then any of this, so now you're paying off the debt service with the energy limit exemption, and now all those energy savings just flow to your bottom line. And if you remember the other stat I said, where generally we are underestimating the guaranteed savings, and we do that for a couple of reasons. One, if we don't make the savings, we have to write a check. So I don't know what you guys, I'm always fond of writing checks. So we're gonna be conservative, and that's why we usually exceed it by 127%. So if we project savings here, probably going to be 25% higher. And again, that's just money that goes back to your operating budget, and that's the beauty of the revenue limit energy exemption, is that's money you can do for anything. So that's maybe how we would approach some of those. Let's go get some projects, let's get those identified, let's get the savings set up, let's meet the requirements of the statute when you're setting for your debt service and doing those projects. And now, as those savings come in, it should be Christmas, every week.
There are two projects that I'm kind of interested in, is the Shorewood and then obviously Madison. Again, interested in Wisconsin school district. Could you give us information as far as the return on investment that you made in those projects?
Yeah, it's in there.
Is it? Okay.
If you don't mind.
No
I don't have
problem.
my
I
book.
would love it if you'd show me
Sure.
what it is.
Okay. We have the detailed scope of work for the reference projects, tab 2 of the appendix.
Okay.
Okay. So in this tab, this is UW Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what we call our film matrix, facility improvement measures.
Sure.
So we list a bunch of projects. Now what I'm showing you here is just the ones that they selected.
Yes.
Okay. But the original list was multiple pages there. So while this is showing is here's the savings as we see it.
What project is this for?
This is for, I think this was Madison. Yes. Or no, I'm sorry, this is Milwaukee's.
Okay.
This is UW Milwaukee. Let's
Okay.
call it UW Milwaukee.
Sure.
So let me I'll get you the ones you asked about. Here's Shorewood's.
Okay.
Okay. We got it right there.
Okay.
So you can see, here's how we structure this. So we'll show the savings based on, so if you do this work, and our study will show you about a page write-up for what does this really mean? What is
Sure.
the scope of work? And that's another
Yeah,
binder.
no, I don't need that.
Okay. And so here's what your utility savings will be. Here's what your O&M savings will be. These are the savings we would guarantee. Okay. Are there any utility rebates? Focus on energy or whatever. And what's the cost of the project? And then what's the simple payback?
Okay, cool.
So that's for each individual one, and then it sums it up here at the bottom as well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And then Madison's behind there, I believe. Madison's in a different format. It was done quite a few years ago, but
That's fine.
anyway. So that's basically the gist of it for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And is it Dave that would be on site and would be our project manager, or at least our direct contact?
What my position would be is I would be most involved as we're developing the opportunities and the needs and putting pricing together and calculations. We have a separate group of people that do the actual project management.
The actual implementation.
Oversee the contractors. I am still involved, but I'm more involved during the development stage.
And do we deal with that person or that team then if problems arise, you have a go-to guy or?
It's however you want to structure it, okay? What some districts do is they'll have monthly meetings. We'll announce when we're having our construction meetings with the subcontractors, who you want to include in that. If you want to have special meetings, to present to the board, here's what we've done so far. Whether that's monthly, quarterly, it's your project, however you want to define it. How much time you want to allocate to it, how much time you want with us. Some districts, Shorewood's doing it where I think any project over $100,000, they want a committee to review some of the quotes and look at it. Other ones are letting us run off and do it. So we're flexible based on whatever you're comfortable with doing from your time constraints. Does that make sense?
Ultimately, there'll be a project manager who's in charge of all the construction, but ultimately, Ron's neck is the one
that's the one throat to choke.
we grab, and we all work together as a team, and
That's why I asked to wear a tie.
that's right.
Cover up
the
talk about that?
red marks.
Can you revisit your fee structure, just so that I make sure
Sure.
I'm understanding that?
Sure. Okay. If we go back to that appendix 2, I guess, that might help. Or the tab 2, or I guess I'll call it tab 2. Okay, so let's go back to Shorewood in that tab 2. Okay, so Shorewood's a couple pages in. That's UW Milwaukee. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, here's Shorewood. Okay. So if you see, we've identified multiple potential projects, and actually, the original was probably 3 pages. That when we did the comprehensive, we identified, 3 times this amount. Working with the district, they then kind of pared it down, honed it down to look at what projects they want done. So each one of these FIMs, facility improvement measures, is a FIM code, and there's a separate write-up in another binder that describes what the scope of work is for that project. Okay, so that says here's exactly what we're going to do. We're replacing the lighting in these buildings, we're putting reflector kits, whatever. So we have a detailed scope behind that. So if I go across here, we've now identified what's going to be done. We identify the utility savings. Okay, so we got the calculations. If we do this work, here's how much you're going to save from a utility cost. We do look at O&M savings. So, for example, if I replace a bunch of lights, Patrick doesn't have to buy lights for another 7 years. So that's savings that we can claim because it's coming out of his O&M budget. So that's what those two numbers are. Total savings. And then here's the net cost. So we've now evaluated from a not to exceed number. If we do this work, how much is it going to cost the district? And then what's that payback? So this number does have markup in it. Okay, now it's a not to exceed because we based it on what our internal experts were telling us. We haven't necessarily, and maybe we might have gotten some bids depending on the project at that stage. So we will then mark that up, and we'll show you those numbers, that this is now the cost to the district to do that project. And we line all of those up like that. Now, once we get deeper into it, now we start actually going out for bids, it's very possible that that cost could be lower. Okay, because somebody got real aggressive, somebody got real hungry. But we have to identify this because this is what all the savings, all the finance calculations are based on, and your payback.
Well, using this $744,000,
Right.
what would your fee have been in that project? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, this is for DDC, energy management, DDC controls upgrade across. It said the general markup is somewhere between 12 and 19%. So
Okay.
whatever that works out to that particular number,
Right.
And that would be what that fee is. But again, I think our costs are lower than a lot of people, so that makes we're able to do the projects for less. One other little thing I can point out here, we guarantee no change orders. So if you identify this set of projects, that's the setup, that's the total cost, not to exceed number. We do that, we set up, and you'll see here there is an O&M, where I can find it, this O&M. So we usually set up X amount of dollars as well, and what we really call it a contingency fund. So let me explain how that works. In the Shorewood one, it says $250,000. So again, we're trying to identify the whole project. We're making sure that nobody's going to nickel and dime it. So we would try to put in the finances, and generally it's a percentage. It could be 100,000, it could be 50,000, whatever. So generally a percentage of the total project. So what that's for is, let's say, we're fixing something, and then we found something else that needed to be repaired, a bad motor or something like that. Probably something Patrick's going to have to pay out of his budget sooner or later. So we go back to the district and say, look, we were working on this part of your ventilation, we found a bad motor, do you want us to replace it? It's $250. And we'd have this O&M fund, it's kind of like they got the ins and outs of it. So we would say, all right, yeah, let's go ahead and use the O&M fund to pay for that part of the project. So that comes off the total. Now let's say we come in under on another project. Well, let's take that money, put in the contingency fund. At the end of the project, the contingency fund is back to you, that's your dollars. But we try to roll that, try to account for that early on in the project, so that we're not necessarily, again, nickel and dime. We know the project was $6 million, but there was these other errors over here, so you really owe us another $100,000. That's on us, but we do have that contingency there that allows us to move through. You have total control of that fund. So that's no fee for us, but that's just how we maybe handled it if some things came up during the project, again, without changing the total cost of the project. And again, at the end of the day, when we're totally done, what some districts do is say, we got $100,000 left in this contingency fund. We were going to, one of the projects we didn't select was replace all the lighting at West School. Well, maybe now maybe we'll take that money and go do that. But that's some of the flexibility we try to build into the project. So once we've set the project, that's the max price that it's going to be. Nothing else is coming back, and this is everything going to get done. More than likely, we could do more. Up to you.
And what does O&M stand for?
Operation and maintenance.
Anybody have any other questions? Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for your time.
Guys.
Thank you. All right, let me see. It takes me this long to get it.
We'll make sure we email the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I'll get it to you
Let's
tonight,
get it to
Martha.
Martha or something.
Okay.
to us.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, and if you don't mind, we're just going to continue with our other items on our agenda.
Nope, I will get out of your way.
Next is the approval of the WIAA applications for the cooperative team sponsorships for boys and girls hockey. And I believe everybody received the schools that are involved in the co-ops and the fact that it is a continuation of the way the co-op is set up as of now. So I would entertain a motion to approve that boys and girls hockey co-op application.
Move to approve both applications.
Second.
Motion by Meering, Seconded by Riley. Any discussion?
Have there been any concerns on the part of our school or other schools about the sharing of expenses, et
Well,
cetera?
historically, the makeup of the co-ops has changed. I mean, this is not what this is the current setup, but it wasn't the original setup. And it does flows. I noticed that Wisconsin Heights is listed in the girls.
Mhm.
I think they have one player. So it's based upon whatever the level of involvement is. And I've heard, I mean, they're obviously, all their boards are gonna have to do the same thing that we're doing and have in the past.
Right. I was just wondering if there's ever any
I haven't
kind of
heard of any problems.
controversy or.
I know in the past, there's, in the previous contracts, I never heard of any real issues. It's been a pretty good working relationship.
Great.
And it's obviously given our kids opportunities that wouldn't exist if we weren't to have that cooperation, because obviously we don't have enough
Absolutely.
players at this point, and so there are some kids that want to play hockey, and it works out well for
I
all
think
parties involved.
if we can help kids play hockey, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
From a North Dakota kid.
Oh.
I'm not gonna
It's a
argue.
Wisconsin thing. It's always, what did Johnson say? It's always a great day when we're playing hockey.
When
or
we're playing
something.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none and having a motion and a second, those in favor of the WIAA application for co-ops, boys and girls hockey, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. The next, I assume, is coming out of finance. Is that correct, Mr. Cummings?
Yes, it is. Maybe Martha can explain it a little
Sure.
bit. Tonight.
Sure. So basically, we currently have a contract with Rhyme for all of our elementary copiers, as well as our district office copiers. And it's coming up in April, so we needed to go out and find a new lease. What I noticed when I read through the policies is that the board does allow us to go through a national contract if there is one that exists. And we are actually part of the National Joint Powers Alliance, and Rhyme is part of NJPA. So because of that, we could go directly to them without having to go out for RFP for this proposal. So what they've done is they actually went through a whole process looking at all of our copiers, making sure they're placed in the right places, making sure we have the speed that we need to make them efficient for our teachers. And so they put this proposal together for us. In the end, we're saving almost $900 a month with over the current lease proposal. I do want to indicate that the high school is currently with a different provider, but their machines are not doing too well, and they have about 15 months left on the lease. So what Rhyme did was also look at those. So they're on this list to be replaced, but in addition, they're going to be sending us a check for approximately $30,000 to pay off the 15 months, as well as the $500 per machine, and there's 3 machines that we're going to get charged to have them taken away.
Any other questions?
I guess, Gary, did you want to talk about Sean's recommendation for?
Sean's recommendation was that over the course of the next 5 years that we cut our use of basically paper in half. Try to work on that so it's more electronic communications, what have you.
He's just recommending that we try to do that? or
Right.
And this
have
is a 5-year.
strategy?
This is a 5-year lease. That's why the 5 years.
I
came out of.
see.
So-
Well, I mean, it's nice to have the recommendation, but would we be able to tie it into a cost savings number, like savings in paper, savings in other?
We'll leave that up to you, Doug. That being the case, I will go ahead and make a motion that we, coming out of Finance Committee, that we go ahead with this five-year
5-year lease.
5-year lease. It also goes as you don't need them. If you don't need the copiers, it also goes down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it looks like the district office is losing 3.
Yes.
And the high school is losing 3.
Yes, they're losing 3 smaller machines. They're getting a machine that'll do all of it together. And yes, we have 3 machines at the district we don't use, so we're getting rid of them.
Well, a fax machine, holy
One-
cats.
I guess one other thing.
Nobody needs a fax machine anymore.
One other thing you'll see on the right-hand side in the red towards the bottom, there's a sharp 70-inch IWB. I don't know what IWB stands for, but basically they're throwing in, if you want to say it's free, a 70-inch touchscreen TV that can be used. You probably know more about it, but can be used like a smart board, but it's a touchscreen TV. So that's going to be thrown into the deal as well.
Those are so
You can watch football on it.
Yeah, Gary's gonna watch football.
Yeah, you can try your own plays, Gary. It's they're pretty fun. They're very fun machines. And the fax, boy, nobody will miss that.
Right.
And if the machines that are that are disappearing, actually, the work can be done on the other machines.
Yes.
Boy, well done. Very well done. $10,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Looks good to me.
I heard a motion. Was there a second?
Who made the motion?
Mr. Cummins made the motion.
Also,
second.
okay.
Cool.
Mr.
Okay.
Mortimer made the second. Any further discussion?
Saving money.
Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you for your attendance. See you in
You